Hello and welcome to another episode on our Yoga Life channel, on our coaching classes. Today I want to share with you some really interesting insights from the world of NLP, of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, about why you are not what happened to you, why it's very much your choice, your focus, and your decision, what meaning you are assigning to the things that are happening to you. Now, this teaching is very closely related to an incredible researcher, a man by the name of Viktor Frankl. He is an author, a neurologist, and a psychologist who was Austrian. He is no longer with us. He died in the late 1990s. And he was one of those rare Auschwitz survivors. What he did during this time at Auschwitz was that he got really clear on what were the determining factors in people's minds and people's hearts that allowed them, if they were amongst the fortunate people who did survive this concentration camp, to go on and thrive and live a good life, versus the people who might have survived, but who, with so much pain, so much loss, so much horrible stuff that they have seen or had seen, didn't manage to survive and went on to suicide or went on to live really miserably. He wrote a famous book that is called Man's Search for Meaning. It's actually really worthwhile reading. It's just a tiny little book that you can buy, and it's a tremendous power, the story he tells in there and the conclusions that he comes to. So what he is asserting is that he believes that you are not what happened to you, but if you can find a meaning and you can tap into that higher power, that higher meaning within you, then you can harness whatever happened to you, whatever horrible events, whatever tricky childhood, whatever other external factors, harness them and utilize them to become the very best that you can be and bring all of that beauty. And often this beauty, this depth gets created in people in times of major challenge and in times of loss. So bring all of that to the table and serve and love in your highest potential. Now, the NLP model I want to share with you is kind of the how-to of how meaning gets created and how you can catch yourself when you are giving things meanings that might seem true at the time but aren't really serving you. So let's have a look. We'll have a little graphic here. The first thing that happens there on the right side is it shows you an event, an external event. And that head that you can see is pretty much any person ever perceiving what is going on the outside. So the way that you perceive the events that are happening around you are through your senses. So hearing, seeing, smelling, feeling, touching something, etc. And whatever is going on out there in the world at this stage is yet completely neutral. There is no meaning attached. It's just, a thing that is happening. Through your senses, you are perceiving. And then what happens is that you are hitting a whole bunch of filters in your head because your brain can't take everything in. If all the sensory elements that are going on out there in the world would be taken all at once, we would go in complete overdrive. Like if I had to consciously think about my digestion, my breathing, the wind outside, it's a stormy day today in Sydney, the nature, the filming, the cameras, the lighting, everything right now, I would probably explode and not be able to think at all anymore. So our mind, our brain is trained to delete, distort and generalize information, pretty much putting it into little drawers so that we can quickly and logically make sense of what's going on for us. The problem is that we are often defaulting to automated thinking, and that can become tricky when it goes around creating meaning. So what are the filters that we apply in making sense? First of all, and you can see it written down there, there's time and space and those kind of elements. Where are we? Where are we in which time? Like I would probably make sense of what's going on right here, right now for me, differently if it had happened 500 years ago. Imagine you're beaming some 500-year ago person, medieval person, into the seat right now with a camera on them. They'd probably run away screaming. So time and place is relevant. The language that you speak. There's different languages who make sense of the world in a whole different way. I just had a chat earlier today to a friend about how funny it is what different personality attributes we are bringing out as we are speaking different languages. I know that when I speak Spanish, I'm a completely different person, much more passionate. I'm using my hands. When I lived in Spain and returned to Germany afterwards, I had to sit on my hands for a whole week because people were finding it so weird that I couldn't stop, moving my hands around. So language very strongly determines how we perceive our surrounds, the society we grow up in. Like, is it, for example, a very open, very democratic, very engaging society, or is it one with, for example, a caste system or some sort of system where certain people, certain genders are assigned really clear and rigid roles? The memories that we have are also strong determinant factors whether or how we are making sense of what's going on. Certain events out there can trigger a whole range of memories of something similar that happened to us years ago and set off a whole reaction. Culture, the culture we are in, the family we are in, maybe even the spiritual or religious circles that we are in, also very clearly determine what we are supposed to think versus what we are supposed to reject. Decisions that we've made about who we are, who we can be, who we should be, woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? That's a really important factor. The values we hold and the beliefs we have about ourselves, about life, about the world at large. Masculine, feminine energy is a really interesting one. If I'm fully in my feminine energy, I will act and react to external factors very differently than if I'm in my masculine and I'm, all powerful, steam ahead. The attitudes that I have, my age. There's so many different filters, and in a very personal way, all those filters overlay. This is why no two people will ever make sense of an event in exactly the same way. You can see that when, for example, there's an accident that happens and police has to question lots of different people around what happened. They have to do that. They can't just go with one or two witnesses because every witness sees the event from a different angle, perceives it in a different way, then also makes meaning through all those different lenses. And so only in conjunction with different people and different experiences and different memories of the event will the police then be able to put together more or less what happened during the accident, for example. So very important to know that all these filters are individual and that therefore there is very rarely like just one truth or one fact of life. Everything is very much determined by our perceptions through our filters. And what comes out once the external event has been run through all those filters is on the other side, the internal representation. So this is when we are assigning meaning. So, for example, someone walks past us that we have known but we haven't seen in a while, and they don't acknowledge us, they just walk straight past us. Depending on your filters, depending on kind of the way that you make sense of what is going on there, you will then have an internal representation. So you might think the person is being rude to you because they are choosing to ignore you. If you're an angry person, you might get upset. You might be worried that they are upset with you because maybe you've done something and you're not even aware of it. So you might do this whole spiel in your head around what it is that you have done, and your internal representation is that the person is angry at you. Maybe your internal representation is not about you at all, and you're just starting to wonder what's going on for them, if they are okay, and decide that you can give them a call later and check in with them. So very clearly, there is not the one truth. Until you have asked that person, you will not know what's been going on for them. But depending on your different filters, you will come to a conclusion, which is your internal representation. Now, once you have an internal representation, this is when you then step into an emotional state. So as I said, if you think the other person is angry with you, you might be worried, you might be fearful. This is a whole state in your body. If you think the other person has been rude to you, you might be the one getting angry. And there's a whole different state going on in your body at that point. Maybe you are fearful, maybe you are concerned for them. But depending on the sense that you assign or the meaning that you assign to whatever went on out there, you will then be in an emotional state. And this is where it becomes tricky, because people will then often be reactive to whatever sense that they were assigning here, whatever meaning they were giving, rather than stepping back and going, well, this is just what I think. Let's verify, let's ask the other person. They will go into snap reactions and then often create really unhealthy situations based on a snap judgment. The other thing that happens is once you are in a certain state, you will usually assume a certain body posture. So we all know what it's like if somebody's really sad, head down, looking down, hunched over, shallow breathing. That's like the typical state of being sad or being in a kind of depressed sort of state. Whereas if you are really excited and happy, you might be jumping for joy. There's a very different energy and a very different perspective there. So your physiology will then also tie in, because there is a feedback loop between your state and your physiology. Depending on how you move and how you are in your body, you are also then triggering more states. So if you are in an unhealthy posture, into a posture that kind of encourages you to be sad or be lonely or feel sorry for yourself, then this is again going to impact your state. So the other thing that gets triggered by the state that you are in is, like I said, your behavior being reactive or being proactive about how you respond to what happened. A lot of people, as I said, enter snap judgments, get upset, get angry, and then start a whole fight, start a whole issue or challenge out of this, or withdraw and make all sorts of assumptions about what other people are thinking or saying, versus stepping back, observing, seeing it from a bird's eye perspective, whatever happened, knowing that you can't really fully trust whatever is going on in your head immediately, and saying, okay, what's the bigger picture here? What does make sense at all? Who do I need to ask or to verify with what's going on? And then how do I respond in a proactive way? How can I drive the situation in a way that whatever outcome that I want to have here is most likely being achieved? This is really important in communication. For example, in the workplace, I sometimes have leaders and I have business people approach me when they have difficulties with their staff, and they will, for example, be really angry about something that a staff member has done, and they run their email by me. The one thing that I will always say to them is, before you start writing anything, before you start sending this message or sending whatever communication you have, first of all ask yourself, what is the outcome you want to achieve? What do you want to stand at the end of whatever interaction you have with that person next? Be clear about what you want. Do you want to feel like you're right? Do you want to win? Do you want to teach them a lesson out of anger? Or do you want to figure out what it is that would be best for the business, for them in their role, and then say and do whatever necessary to drive the situation to that outcome? So again, thinking and acting with the end in mind, rather than being reactive to what's going on the outside. What we want to do in developing ourselves and developing our own skill set is to learn to be a decisive factor in the equation. To not be thrown, like a little piece of cork bobbing on the ocean, be thrown left, right, and center with whatever's going on the outside, but be the people who are leading from the inside out, who are clear about what they want, clear about serving in the highest, in their highest way, and then be able to communicate with that in mind. So you are not what happened to you. You drive your bus. You make up the story. You decide whatever meaning you want to assign to the things that have happened to you. And I know sometimes really bad stuff happens. Big breakups, big losses, big betrayals, stuff that hurts. I get it. This is not necessarily something that can happen within like a 20-minute video. But start to think with the bigger picture in mind. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? What kind of meaning can you assign to what's happened to you that will serve you step into a more wholesome, more healthy, more powerful, more loving and serving kind of personality, and into the life that you truly want to live? It's completely up to you what meaning you assign, and it's up to you to drive into your future with all the resources that you can gather for yourself. So watch out what your mind is telling you, and remember, you are not what happened to you. You are the one who determines your future. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this is helping you if you're going through a difficult time. You know where to subscribe down here to our channel, and you know that you can hit the bell button if you want to get notifications about upcoming content. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day.